Hello, listener. The fact you hear this means you're alive. If you're new here, consider subscribing and comment below where you're listening from. Let's begin the story. My name is Marek Stone. I am a prepper, a civil engineer by training, and a man who writes things down before touching a switch. I built a bunker into a shale shoulder above an old logging basin. The road to it is quiet most weeks, wind is not. This is a record of systems, choices, and the cost of keeping them honest when the world tilted. I will tell you what I did, why I did it, and what it cost in fuel, time, and sleep until the numbers wrote the plan instead of my nerves. The story begins before anyone used the word zombie. The news called it a neurological event and argued over causes. I did not argue. I checked air, power, water, and doors, then I checked them again the next day. I trusted the log more than memory because memory bends and the log does not. The bunker is small by design. One steel door, one service hatch, one drain tunnel under the track, 2 rooms for living, 1 for work, 1 for storage, and a short hall for decontamination. Air comes first, then water, then power, then food. Write that order on a card and tape it to the wall. When you are tired, the card thinks for you. Keep doors few and strong. Keep routes short and quiet. Keep tools where a tired hand finds them. Set rules you can run half asleep and test them when you are awake. One day set the pattern, before the word zombie, when the radio went strange, and when the drain tunnel answered. After that, the rules were not optional. I keep one rule: write before you act. Every change lands in the log with time, weather, and a line about tone. I do not chase hunches. I check the board, run the checklist, and let the hill answer. What follows is one day that began ordinary and ended with a different voice on the radio and a pipe that did not behave. Morning starts the same way because routine protects you when judgment drifts. I open the log before I touch a switch and read it line by line. Battery level, pressure between rooms, CO2, generator hours, water in the tanks. I write the time and mark a square next to each number. Empty squares mean skipped steps. Steps save lives. Air comes first. I stand at the gauge in the decon hall and read the difference between outside and the living room. If the needle sits in the green band, the bunker holds a small push of air inward. That push keeps dirty air out when a seal is tired or a hinge is dry. If the number drops, doors stay closed until I find the leak. I press the test button on the clean air unit. The fan ramps. The light turns steady green. I listen for a scrape that says a bearing wants grease. 2 room monitors keep me honest. One sits low, one sits high. I care more about the trend than one moment. If the upper number rises during cooking, I crack a vent, run the fan 5 minutes, and write it down. We use simple calls for air status. Good, watch, fix. Good means breathe and move. Watch means shorten stove time and keep doors closed. Fix means masks on until numbers settle. Water is honest if you respect gravity. A well drops through shale to clean rock. A hand pump lifts water when power is dead. An electric pump fills 2 buried tanks and a small day tank on a shelf. The shelf gives pressure without a switch. I check the day tank sight tube. If it sits below the tape line, I top it. We pasteurize with a thermometer to save fuel. If the news gets worse, I add a UV wand or a rolling boil and log it. Waste gets lanes and rules or it punishes you. Black water runs out a sealed pipe to a dry bed past the bend. Gray water drains to a gravel pit downhill and never crosses a drinking line. I keep traps wet and lids closed. After thaw, I probe roots and reset what frost moved before spring rain turns ruts into streams. Power is third on the card but loud in the head. Panels on the ridge pull sun when the sky allows. The cable run is short and buried. The charger reads in plain words: full, bulk, float. I write what it says. Batteries sit in a cabinet that hates sparks. The generator is a backup, not a habit. Once a week, I warm it and let it run for an hour. I write that hour on the drum with chalk so future me can see the cost. When clouds stack for days, I spend power like cash I need later. Food is fuel and order. Staples sit in buckets with labels and dates. Rice, beans, oats, canned meat, oil, salt, and a few sweets when rain lasts 3 days. The pantry card sits at eye level. If you take a jar, write it. If a line gets a red circle, that item moves to the task list. Tools hang on a board with drawn outlines so a tired hand knows where the hammer lives and where the cutter belongs. Loud tools live in a bin with a lock. Need the grinder, sign a chit, and tell 2 people. Hand tools first, loud tools last. A pry bar waits by the steel door. A long hook hangs near the drain. Gloves sit in a bucket by the hatch. Wedges, tape, cord, and markers ride in baskets at each door. I walk the outside line when the hill is quiet. The door sits behind a false rock face and a stack of dead firewood. The slope above it wears brush so rain runs slow. The ground in front of the door is a shallow bed of small stone that whispers under boots. The path to the spring passes a drain that cuts under the track. I kneel and look in with a lamp. The tunnel is clear when the bottom shows dry gravel and a slow run to the creek. I check the kill box last. It is a small court of rock and crushed stone between 2 low walls. The ground is uneven on purpose. A runner will stumble. A walker will step where I want. 2 floods face inward and wear hoods so the outside stays dark. A bell on a spring sits where a knee might bump it. The heavy door slides on rails and drops 2 steel bars into a pocket. If the door bows, the bars hold. If the bars fail, the floor plate drops and jams the lane. The decon hall is thin and simple. Hooks for coats, a tub for boots, a spray bottle with soap, a second with diluted bleach, a light that turns blue when I press a timer. 30 seconds of light on suits adds 1 more layer. Not magic, just margin. A paper on the wall says the steps in big words. Stop, mask, gloves, wash, rinse, dry, breathe. Back inside, I set the kettle and set the radio to scan the low channels with the volume down so it will not hide real sound. I sweep the floor because grit jams locks and sticks to seals. Short tasks first. Long tasks afternoon. If I follow that order, I finish something before an alert steals the afternoon. The board runs the place more than my mood. Power by hour. Water windows by day. Radio quiet times. Door protocols in plain words. 2 entries only, main door and service hatch. 2 people open, 2 people close. Say what you do. Hear it back. Touch the latch, test the weight, check the seal, sign the card. Most mornings end with the same small job. I walk to the drain tunnel and listen. It sounds like water in a pipe, a run under rock. It is easy to hear and easy to ignore. I write normal if it sounds like last week. If it sounds different, I stand there and listen until my brain stops lying. Then I write what is new if the word is odd. The kettle starts to sing. I pour hot water over oats and sit by the radio table. I pull a cloth over the lamp so the seam at the door will not glow. I mark the top of the hour for a quick call to a friend 2 hills away. We keep it short because airtime is a resource like anything else. We use numbers and verbs, not names. The handheld chirps once, sharp and clean now. Then a voice I do not know speaks a call sign I have not heard since before the outbreak, and it says my name. Perimeter work is slow and boring, which is why it works. I made the outside simple enough to run half asleep and strong enough to buy time when I am fully awake. The hill gives stone and shape. I use both before I use noise. From the trail you see brush, an old woodpile, and a shed that does not open. The real door sits behind the wood with an apron of crushed stone that whispers under boots. A shallow trench above it catches rain and sends it to the drain tunnel. Dry ground keeps boots noisy. The kill box is a small court in front of the door. 2 low rock walls frame it. The floor is broken on purpose with uneven stones and loose gravel. Feet seek safe ground. I made that path crooked so a sprint turns into a stumble. Lights sit low and wear hoods so they wash the ground inward and leave the slope dark. Alarms are simple. Trip lines tug brass clackers. Pans on short wire legs sing if weight lands. A strip of mirrors under the eaves flashes when a flood turns on. From the shelf inside, I see which one moved. A bell plate at knee height rings at the pinch. The door is heavy steel on rails. 2 bars drop into floor pockets and a third slides behind the handle inside. If the door bows, the bars hold. If they bind, a short lever clears them. I grease rails and wipe seals each month. The handle tag reads locked or open by feel, so I do not guess. The drain tunnel runs under the old track to the creek. In summer, it moves a trickle after storms. In winter, it keeps the path from icing. A grate sits at the mouth near the court and another near the creek. Both lock with a pin and chain. If needed, I can pull a rope and drop a second grate like a curtain inside the tunnel. Water helps more than wire. A hidden flap beside the trench sends runoff into a side cut and feeds the tunnel faster. Flood the middle and the court dries. Flood the tunnel and the ground beyond it turns to glue. Deception works when it is boring. A sign at the bend says bridge out and shows a contractor number. A stained drum by a broken pallet reads fumigation. Most drivers turn when a sign and a spill agree. Routes matter more than walls. I cut 1 lane I can close in seconds and left 2 false lanes that end in brush and bad footing. The true lane bends twice, so a straight shot is impossible. I can drag a row of linked X braces with a pry bar and a chain and make that lane a saw. Each X sits on skids so one person can move them, but a bumper cannot. Sound tells me more than sight most nights. I scattered pea gravel where a crawl would happen and crushed brick where someone might belly over a lip. Gravel hisses, brick whispers. The court floor talks through the steel door. I rest a hand on the bar and feel steps before I hear them. Tools sit where tired hands find them. A pry bar at the door. Bolt cutters 3 steps inside. Tape and a marker by the latch. The board lists checks in plain words, stones firm, pins tethered, grates locked, lights hooded, mirrors clean. I test the court in shoes, then socks, then barefoot. If I can cross it at a run without a slip, it needs work. If I can walk it in socks and know where I am with eyes closed, it is right. Twice a month I run the drill, lights dead, radio off, door shut. The hill is the last wall. I stacked cut cedar along the lip in a loose hedge. It looks natural but forces a turn where the lights cut in. Behind that sit low concrete blocks so tires catch if someone pushes luck. When ground is soft, a brush mat over a shallow ditch makes weight find the hole and slow. From the road the place looks dull and failed. Bright places invite plans. Ugly sheds lose interest. At dusk the checklist turns into ritual. I walk the bend and look for fresh tracks. I feel the grate pin. I tug each clacker and wait for the voice. I wipe the mirror strip. I sweep the apron so today's grit does not jam tomorrow's lock. When wind runs down the cut, the drain tunnel makes a low hum at the opening. Most days it is a soft note I forget. Today the tone was lower, as if air moved in and out somewhere deeper in the pipe. Radio changed before the town did. It always does. The noise floor thinned, the regulars went quiet, and the empty space between transmissions felt wider than weather. I kept the handheld low and the bass set to scan. First to fade were hobby nets. The guy who read barometer at dawn missed a day, then 2. A farm pair who traded seed notes moved to short bursts and dropped names. The sheriff repeater hiccuped, then ran idle, then spat codes with digits missing. When a system loses people, it loses grammar first. I stayed practical. Radios ran on the small battery so the big bank stayed fat for night. The antenna sat low to skip cities and catch the next valley. I kept squelch tight so static would not trick a tired brain into hearing words. Before noon, a hospital channel asked for beds and blood. The voice was calm and local. Then the same voice came back with the same request, same phrasing, but the timing was wrong. The alert timestamp said 10:07. My clock said 12:11. 2 hours late on the second push, and no one noticed or no one cared. I wrote it down, time, phrase, tone, and the mismatch. I underlined the mismatch because clocks slip when people do. When times drift, systems are already leaning. At 1300, a number station bled into the low band, 3 chimes, a call sign, and a woman counting. The count restarted twice like someone behind glass pulled the wrong lever. I turned the volume down so I could hear the hill. By mid-afternoon, the weather net ran thin and the grocery dispatch read schedules no one followed. A private security voice tried a public repeater. He asked for medical at a loading dock. He sounded like a person who wanted the world to work like yesterday. I made a short plan. Fuel checks move up a day. Water treatment moves from if needed to daily. Panel cleaning slides to the afternoon. Perimeter checks take the morning slot. The board got new ink. I pulled the heavy door to test the bars. Both fell clean. At 16:20, a state alert hit my phone. It read like an apology. Staffing shortages. Stay home. Avoid hospitals unless critical. Avoid contact with disoriented individuals. The message repeated with the same timestamp twice. That is not how those systems are built. Someone was pushing a button from an empty room. I drove to the first bend and set a sign. Road closed. Bridge out. The bridge is fine. The sign buys time. A lie that keeps strangers moving is cheaper than a truth that brings them to the door. Back at the bunker, I checked the drain tunnel again. The hum sat low and wrong. I set a stick in the gravel to mark flow and wrote a note to return after dark with a light and a rope. I tested the generator for an hour. I chalked the drum with the cost. I shut the base to scan and listened to the hill. A gust ran the trees, then stopped. The tunnel took a breath I did not like. At 18:03, the ridge repeater carried a ranger voice. Trailheads closed. Volunteers sent home. Maintenance suspended. 4 hikers sheltering in a bathroom because the door latched and no one had a key. She asked for wind at elevation and did not wait for an answer. I set a timed loop on the base to identify at the top of the hour with a simple status. Private site, not a clinic, not a pantry. Approach with notice, quarantine required, gate stays closed. I do not invite. I do not threaten. I set terms. As dusk came in, sound carried farther along the cut. The number station kept counting like a metronome. The handheld chirped once, then quiet. Then a voice on the valley pair used my name like a password, and the next 2 words were from years before the bunker existed. The call used a name I had not heard since a summer job on a road crew. That narrowed it to a friend who was close, a recording or a trick. I kept my voice plain. Call sign and condition, I said. Where are you, and what were your last 24 hours? A man answered. Evan, he said. Kayaks. We crossed at dawn. No engines on the lake, no house lights. We're cold, hungry, and clean. Any close contact with confused people? I said. Bites, blood, fever, dizziness? No, he said. 2 of us. Rory lost his voice, yelling into wind. They were near the bend, close enough to read my sign. I watched through a slit beside the door. 2 men stood by the drain, paddles in hand, dry suits zipped. The tall one scanned the slope. The other rubbed his neck. Bridge is out, I said. This site does not accept walk-ins. I can set water and food by the sign. For more, quarantine. 4 days, no contact. Water and food, the tall one said. We keep moving. I used the pass-through, a drawer that opens outside without opening the door. 2 jugs, rice cakes, peanut butter, small bandages. I pushed the drawer out. Step back to the sign, I said. Take the box. They did. They walked the track until brush hid them. I wrote the time, then let the base scan, and the phone pushed the same alert twice with the same timestamp. When clocks repeat, people are missing. Near dusk, the buoy chimed once. I checked the drain. The stick I had set in gravel sat higher. No rain above us. That meant melt in the basin or a choke at the creek mouth. I tied a rope to the creek pin so I could pull it from dry ground if ice packed the grate. Headlamps moved 200 yards down, at the wide flat where the track turns. The tall man pitched an orange fly. The quiet one sat and rubbed his neck. A small stove burned blue. They ate, then lay down. I ran evening checks. Bars fell clean, pans were level. I set the loop to transmit at the top of the hour and then stop. The night card said 2 rings, light the court, no change, cut light and hold. If asked for entry, repeat terms, drawer again. At 22:11, the handheld chirped. The chirp was not the radio. It was my ear marking a change. The bell plate rang once. I counted to 30. Nothing else. I eased the flood on low and washed the gravel. Nothing moved. I cut the light and stood in the dark. A minute later, the left pan ticked like a coin on tin. A second tick, then silence. Soft steps do not ring pans twice. I put my hand on the bar. No weight pushed back. I called the tent by description. "Orange fly on the flat," I said. "If you hear me, stand clear of brush and speak. Lights are coming on." No answer. I washed the court with light. The bell stayed quiet. The pan did not tick. I wrote times and what I did and did not hear. At 23:12, the bell at the first bend rang twice, slow and wrong, like something touched the brush hedge and did not know what it was. I eased the flood and left it low the way a porch light tells a visitor where to stop. Two shapes stood at the sign. Same suits, right height. The way they held the paddles was wrong. The first tilted his head too far toward the light and did not blink. The second lifted a foot like the ground was new and set it down without care. "Evan," I said, "Rory. If you can hear and understand me, stop at the sign. Say your names. Step back." They did not answer. They moved toward the court, slow and messy, with short steps that caught on gravel. The paddles scraped and did not help them balance. They did not look at the door. They looked at the light. "This lane has wire and traps," I said. "If you keep moving, you'll get hurt." They kept moving. I warned them once more and counted 3 slow beats before deciding to act. The plan said distance first, light second, voice last, and fire only if movement ignored all 3. The first 2 were done. The third failed. I checked backstop, checked the angle to the grate, and breathed once. The door stayed barred. My finger stayed clear until the sight held steady. Nights like this need decisions. I kept distance and cover. I made the safe call. I took the shot. The echo died. The court went still. I logged the time and location exact. I put on mask and gloves and moved because bodies at the door bring more. Down the track, the orange fly sagged and flickered like someone had torn a guy line. Those 2 in the light were not the men who pitched it. Same jackets, different bodies. I kept the radio low and the lights lower. After a hard night, you do not chase the band. You set rules and let the hill decide what you hear. I wrote them on a card and taped it above the mic. Keep calls short. Use a radius, not coordinates. Status in 3 words. Ask for help on the quarter hour only. Everything else waits until daylight. If the voice shakes, drink water before you key. I set a schedule, top of the hour, 5 after half past. If I miss one, a loop plays a line. Private site, not a clinic, not a pantry. Approach with notice, quarantine required, gate stays closed. No threats, no promises, just terms. I kept the antenna low so it would talk to the next valley and not pull a city. The base ran at half power by day and listen only at night. The handheld scanned the valley pair with tight squelch so static would not trick me into hearing words that were not there. I made a simple challenge for voices I might trust. 2 steps. First is a number from a short list that changes daily. Second is a small fact from the last check-in. If you are who you say, both are easy. If you are not, the second one catches you. I wrote today's pair on a card and clipped it under the desk. The card moves at midnight. I added a light code for the ridge. 1 flash means I see you. 2 means move to the sign. 3 means hold and speak. If we need quiet, a covered lantern does the same job. 3 moves are enough. More and people forget. For mapping, I turned on a small box that listens for short position pings. I do not send. I only log times and directions. If a canoe cuts the far shore or a sled crosses a pass, the box hears it and writes it down. Power discipline keeps air clean. Radios pull from a small battery so the big one stays full for fans and pumps. We write numbers with a pen. At dawn, I called a friend 2 hills west. We keep the same form because form prevents drift. "This is Hillside 1, I said. "Radius 20 miles. Status, stable, low power, clean air." "Hillside 2, he said. "Stable, low power, broken tap." I need fittings. Drop at the culvert cache, I said. Take half. Leave a note. Copy half and note, he said. Short calls keep nets alive. Long calls clog channels and waste power. We keep breath for emergencies. I logged visits with arrows for bearing and short words for speed. If 3 pings take the same line an hour apart, a corridor is forming. That is where you set watch. I posted a second card. Deception checks. Ask 2 specifics from last window. Ask for a small change of channel. Ask for a short phrase from yesterday's loop. If they balk, end the call. By noon, the band was thin but useful. A ranger asked for head counts and got 1 answer. An old ham read wind and pressure, said his wife had a fever and signed off for tomorrow. I boiled more water. After lunch, I walked the ridge with the handheld and pinned a map by the desk with bright spots and dead pockets. New rule. No long calls from a bright spot, no sensitive talk from a dead one. Back at the bunker, I rewrote the SOP in short lines so anyone could run it tired. We keep names off open mics. We use roles or colors. We report in 3s, status, need, risk. We repeat back numbers and verbs. We do not teach on the air. I set times for weather, roads, water, and medical. Weather at the top, roads at half, water each morning, medical on the quarter hour. Near dusk, the number station dropped away and the valley went soft. Odd calls crawl out when the band is quiet. I set the lamp to red and kept my voice level. A friendly voice asked to switch to a side channel. He used the right greeting and my hill name. I asked for challenge 1. He answered without a pause. I asked for the second detail from yesterday's window. He missed by 1 word, then tried again with a close copy. Say again, I said. He cleared the first code. He failed the second, and he did not ask why. They called from the ridge just after first light. A woman spoke first, clear and direct, using simple words that sounded like work, not panic. This is the old fire lookout on the Iron Spur, she said. 4 inside, 1 injured. No safe way down. We've stayed apart from anyone confused. Say your roles in your last 24 hours, I said. I'm Dana, she said. Ranger. With me are Lila, former EMT, Owen radio and maps, and Hal, older, cut calf, cleaned and wrapped, no fever. Hang a bright cloth on the north rail so I can see you, I said. Stay off the stairs after dusk. I come at first light if weather allows. A red jacket moved on the rail a minute later. They were real. I planned the route and kept only what works when engines draw heads. The road was no longer a road. The drain tunnel carried sound. The safe line was an old skid track behind a rock spine, a short corduroy across wet ground, and a side cut that hid us from the basin. I packed water, food, blankets, a small stove, a med kit, masks and gloves, rope, a saw, bolt cutters, a small battery, and spare radio cells. Rifle slung, handgun holstered, 1 spare magazine sealed, and I set the loop to play every 30 minutes with approach rules and quarantine terms. If someone came while I was gone, the recording would set the line. I left at gray dawn on the quad. Shade ice and ruts forced slow work. Where the track turned to soup, I cut the engine and pushed. Half a mile out, I heard steps off my right, steady and wrong. I eased behind a stump, kept the rifle low, and backed out on a wide arc. A clean route beats a clean shot. The lookout stood on posts with a narrow stair and a small deck. A red jacket hung from the north rail. Stay inside. Talk from there, I said. Masks if we share air. No one touches anyone. We move in pairs. If I say stop, freeze. If I say down, find ground. Quarantine is 4 days. Heat, water, and food pass through a window. Agree and we move. If not, I leave supplies. We agree, Dana said. Lila's hands were calm. Owen held a taped radio. Hal kept his leg up. We staged the descent in 3 legs. First, I hauled gear to the quad and lashed it low. Second, Dana and Owen walked the top trail with me to mark loose rock. Third, we brought Hal down on a rope seat, Lila above him, me below. At the corduroy, I parked nose out and laid pads. Hal rode strapped at 2 points. Dana kept his shoulders still. Owen walked left, Lila right. We moved on hand signals. We made steady progress until movement around us changed. Two shapes crossed the trail and never looked at us. They tilted toward the basin as if sniffing a beep. We took the long way through young birch where nothing moves fast. At the ridge break above the bunker, I stopped and listened. No engines. One ping from the buoy, then quiet. We rolled the last grade and stopped short of the court. Entry is a checklist. Floods off, I said. Latch check, rope reset, pass through clear, masks on. We went in and I dropped bars. Quarantine is real, I said. 4 days, no contact. I set heat, water, food, and radios through a pass. Follow the list and we stay friends. The quarantine room is a small capsule with its own fan, a heater, and a pass window. I lit the stove, set a carbon monoxide alarm, and pressed test. I slid in a tote with masks, gloves, wipes, a thermometer, and a fingertip oxygen meter. A second tote held marked dishes and bags. I taped a card to the door. Temperatures at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Oxygen after meals, drink water, report cough, nausea, dizziness, or confusion. 2 check-ins a day, 1 emergency slot. Day 1 stayed quiet. I cooked, passed trays, and waited for them to come back. Clean plates, no hands. Day 2 we adjusted. Hal's calf looked better, edges still wept. Leela changed the wrap and asked for gauze and tape. I slid them through and logged the hour. Dana read the perimeter card. Owen asked for a notepad. Night brought sleet and fog. The buoy rang once. A pan clicked and settled. A shape drifted along the hedge and paused at the grate. I let the dark do the work. Day 3 had the wobble. Owen said he felt hot. The thermometer read 99.5, oxygen 97. He drank water and said he had slept too close to the heater. I moved it down 1 mark, cracked the vent, and waited. By afternoon, he was 98.9 and steady. Near dusk, a voice used the Ranger channel and Dana's lookout name like a key. Iron Spur, this is North Fork, it said. Need wind and pressure. Confirm barometer. The cadence was right. The phrasing was off. Dana tapped the deception card through the glass. I nodded. North Fork, confirm yesterday's check word, I said. Then give wind in meters per second. Silence. Then a click that tried to sound normal. Then a tone, wrong by half a step. I logged the time and cut transmit. Day 4, we cleared them. Quarantine ended with a list, not a hug. Fresh clothes, bagged bedding, wipe high touch, hands off the pantry until counts reset. I gave a fast tour. Hedge, tunnel, grate chain, the court, the bars, the radio table. Everyone learned triangle signals. 1 long as weather, 2 short as gate, 3 long as perimeter. Assignments came next. Lila took medical and water. Dana took the outside line. Owen took comms and inventory. I kept systems. Each person got a backup. We ran 1 drill, gate open, gate closed, lights dead, radio down, generator up, water off, smoke in the hall, move to the capsule, bar the door, timer set, then again with masks. We ended with tea and the rule that ends the day. 3 questions: what broke, what changed, what hurts. We write the answers and sign the page. We sleep in shifts tonight. The drain will decide our morning. The day the drain tunnel turned from a pipe into a problem started quiet. We ran morning checks. Pressure was steady, battery fair, tanks at the tape, sky gray. We planned to armor the trench after lunch. Dana walked the bend and marked posts that lifted in frost. Lila scrubbed the capsule. Owen set new check words. I checked the grate pin and listened to the tunnel. The note was low again, not wind, flow. Stone, Owen said from the door. You hearing that? Yeah, I said, sounds padded. We kept the lane closed and moved supplies by the side path. I cleared leaves from the apron. A small stick shook as water pushed past it. When water shakes a stick on a dry day, something downstream is wrong, the court bell whispered. I scanned the bend. No one on the trail, only the drain, talking. The tunnel's breathing wrong, I said. Inside, masks. Owen, log times. Dana, take the grate chain. Lila, standby floods and door bar clear. Lights off. Court empty, chain free. Rope to the creek pin untangled. Say it back. Focus locks. I eased the door and stepped into the court. The tunnel looked normal. Dry gravel, then damp, then dark. A puff of air came out that smelled like creek and stale cloth. The bell plate rang again, softer. Dana crouched by the chain. Lila dimmed the floods. Owen stayed behind the door. I tapped the grate. It rang true. I tapped the tunnel wall. The sound came back heavy, like the space beyond was full of something soft. I pushed the hook in and lifted. The hook came back wet and left a dark mark on stone. Then weight touched the grate from inside and made the chain sing. "Back," I said. "Bars ready." We slid the door and dropped both bars. The door vibrated slowly in a way that was not normal. "Order 1, I said. "Floods off. Inner gate locked. Water divert on my call." We listened. No speech. No feet on gravel. Only scrape, pause, scrape, like mud that thinks it has a path. "Tunnel chain chimed twice," Dana said. "Battery 80, Owen said. "Med ready," Lila said. "They're using the drain," I said. "They followed the air." "What next?" Dana said. "Break the lane," I said. "Water first, grid second, let the hill work." We had built for water. A flap can send roof runoff into the tunnel. A buried barrel can add a short surge, enough to move bodies away from the door and toward the creek grate. "Positions," I said. Lila, floods to low on my mark. Dana, drop the flap on 3. Owen, count and log. I'll take the inner grate. 1, 2, 3. Lila washed the court low. The mouth lit and showed hands like wet gloves gripping bars. Fingers did not close, they just held. Dana yanked the flap rope. Water nosed down the trench. The hands did not pull back. "Second feed," I said. She pulled the buried handle. Flow doubled. Gravel shifted. The chain sang again. "Ready on gate," I said, sliding the rod. None of us had dropped it with anything in the tunnel before. "Drop," I said. The inner grate fell and hit a forearm. The arm bent and stayed. Water climbed to the elbow. More hands came behind and pushed. The grate held. Water rose. The tunnel started to choke. "Inside," I said. Bars checked. Lights down. Hold. Water hissed under the door. The scrape became rumble. Pressure on the steel eased as the flow ran to the creek. "Creek pin," I said. "If the far grate jams, we haul." Dana wrapped the rope. Owen took a loop to manage slack. Leela called minutes so we would not ask. 2 minutes, she said. "Battery 79. The rope twitched, then jerked tight. Dana leaned and locked legs. Owen braced. "Hold," I said. "If it gives fast, we get a rush." The line eased, then jerked again. The tunnel noise changed from rumble to slap like turns in a tight space. 3 minutes, Lila said. "Lift half," I said. Dana raised the pin an inch. Water surged. Something hit the grate and spun away. "Lower," I said. Small hits rattled the rope. The far grate passed pieces. The near grate carried the rest. We forced the drain to clear. "Door pressure dropping," Owen said. 5 minutes, Lila said. "Close feeds," I said. Dana let the flap fall. The barrel ran dry. Flow slowed. The rope eased. The bell stayed quiet. We waited and cracked the door an inch. Cold air slid in. No motion, no scrape. "Courtyard check," I said. "Masks, gloves." We stepped out. The floor was wet and streaked with silt. The tunnel held water at the lower third of the grate and drained steady. 2 hands were wedged at the hinge. They did not move. The water washed them clean. "Bar up," I said. I raised the inner grate into its pocket. The hands folded and slid with the flow. Dana checked the chain. Owen set a stake where water had cut a shallow channel. "Log it," I said. "Time, steps, flow, door pressure." We shut the door and drank water. Tools counted. Faces checked. "Are you dizzy? Do you smell anything odd? All clear." The tunnel's voice climbed to a lighter note as water cleared. The rope lay slack. The floor dried in patches. We tied a second line to the creek pin. We chalked where steel had hummed hardest. We taped the flood switch. "Second check in 10, I said. "Then lunch." Dana found tracks at the bend. Toes in, heels soft, narrow stride. Laces dragged. Prints came from the basin, paused at the sign, turned toward the grate and stopped. "They heard water and looked for tone," she said. "They found the pipe," Owen said. "They'll try again," Lila said. We ate fast. We wrote the next time list so we would not invent it while scared. The afternoon stayed quiet. The tunnel tone rose a little. Then the buoy rang twice and wind turned. The bend smelled metallic. Hair lifted on my arms. Positions, I said, same as before. Drop sooner. We pulled the door. The scrape came faster, as if a line had learned the lane. The far grate chimed before the near one. The rope jumped and went tight. Now, I said, feeds and drop. Water slammed the tunnel. The inner grate fell. The door stayed quiet. The rope hummed as the creek side took a load. The chain on the near grate sang once and held. Hold, I said. 2 minutes, Lila said, battery 78. We held until the hum eased and the scrape fell under water. We raised the grate and closed the feeds. We waited and checked the court. Empty. We need to armor the trench, Dana said. Water is eating under the apron. Tomorrow, I said, stone and mesh. Lower the court an inch. Lip the edge so water goes to the drain first. Tonight, Owen said. We stay dark and we listen, I said. No pattern they can learn. We barred the door and stood in the hall. I reached for the flood switch and stopped. Habit can hurt faster than a mistake. We would have held that quiet posture and let the tunnel sing itself empty if not for the small thing that failed while we were counting minutes and feeling steel. A thin white line on the air gauge slid from green toward gray. Ice hit the hill in layers. Rain turned to pellets, then sheets, then glass on every edge. We shut down what we could and moved on the storm plan. Fans stayed on, radios to listen, lights to red. We taped every LED that leaked. The stove window took black tin so the seam at the door would not glow. The air gauge told the truth first. The thin white line slid from green toward gray while we were busy with the drain, then hovered, then crept again. A slow drift can be weather. A fast drop means a seal is open or a filter is lying. I called it watch. Masks near hands, doors shut. Dana walked the outside line with a rubber mallet and knocked ice off the grate and the hedge. Owen brushed panel frames so melt would not freeze into a hinge. Lila checked the capsule heater and set the oxygen meter by the logbook. The low antenna went deaf by noon. Ice pulled the feed point down and water crept under a lazy wrap of tape. We cut transmit and stayed local. Pressure slid one more tick toward gray. I took the ladder in the service hall. Mask up, I said. No one opens the main door. If the gauge hits fix, move to the capsule and close it. The roof hatch fought paint, then lifted. Ice shelled the rail. I crawled to the mast with a short line on my belt. The antenna wires had sagged. The center block was iced over. I tapped it until the shell cracked. Water ran and froze in flakes. The antenna cable's outer cover had split at a bend. I cut off the damaged piece, stripped it back, made a short repair, sealed it, and raised the center so both wires were tight again. Test, Owen said. The radio took half power without complaint and the meter steadied. Back inside, the gauge sat one hair above fix. The clean air unit showed steady green, but I do not trust a single light. I pressed test and felt a faint push at the door seam when the unit ramped. If the gauge kept sliding, the leak was not the fan. It was a door, a hatch, a filter seat, or a line we had taped on a sunny day and then forgot. We ran the air checklist out loud. Decon door latched, capsule hatch closed, fan on low, service hatch sealed, intake hood clear, return grill clear. Filter frame changed 10 days ago, screws snug, gasket seated. Numbers written so we do not guess in weather. The line eased a hair up and then stayed. I marked good with a question mark. Lila poured hot water and kept people sitting. Rest uses less air than pacing. By late afternoon, ice thickened. The tunnel gave a low tone, then went quiet, which meant the creek mouth had choked or wind had turned. The sheriff repeater was empty. A grocery dispatcher read a schedule to no one. The hill felt alone but not safe. At dusk, a smell moved through the hall. Hot dust with a plastic note. The needle had not moved. Good. The small fan in the decon hall had. Its light flickered and the sound had a scrape now. Kill that circuit, I said. We keep the main unit on. Owen pulled the breaker. The scrape stopped. The gauge did not move. We listened to steel. The hiss at the seam stayed the same. Then the capsule alarm chirped once. Not oxygen, carbon monoxide. It flashed 15, then 8, then 0. False spike, or a whiff from the heater. Lila set the capsule fan to medium and cracked the small vent one turn. The number stayed at 0. We wrote it down. Wind hit once like a door. The great chain answered. The rope on the creek pin went tight and then slack. I checked the gauge again and waited. It stayed in the same place. We ate rice and drank water. Short meal, long cleanup. Wipe handles, hang gloves, sweep grit from the threshold. The band was dead. We were 6 steps into the quiet when the gauge slid half a hair toward gray and the fan light stayed green. That is the worst line to see. Numbers that move when the status light does not. I picked up a mask and pointed to the capsule. "Order 2 if it drops again," I said. "Dana, outside with the mallet. Owen, watch the rope. Lila, sit on the gauge with the log. I'll find the leak with soap and light." The needle twitched, then steadied, then twitched again like a cough holding back. I reached for the spray bottle. The scrape at the door came from our side, not the court. We all froze, listening. The scrape came from the hinge edge, low, as if a seal had folded and dragged on paint. I sprayed soap along the seam and watched for bubbles. Nothing. I sprayed the hinge and the latch pocket. Still nothing. The fan light stayed green. The needle ticked down one more hair. "Capsule," I said. "Masks on." Owen switched the loop to local only. "Dana, outside line with me." We moved fast and tidy. Lila guided Hal and Owen into the capsule, shut the hatch, and set the fan to low. I took the mallet, a light, and tape. Dana clipped a line to her belt and waited at the inner bar. "Count to 30, I said. "If I don't speak, close and drop both bars." I lifted the door 2 inches and slid into the court. Ice glazed the apron. Flood hoods held a ridge of white. The great chain hung loose. No hands, no drag marks. The drain moved slow but steady. Wind pushed sleet along the track, and I checked the frame, seals, and hinge. A fresh paint scar told the story. A gust had flexed the door and kissed the jamb. That made the scrape. I eased back inside. "Paint scar," I said, "not a breach." I dried the seam. The needle stayed near gray. I marked watch. We sat with masks at our necks. "Order 2 for an hour," I said. "No door opens." Minutes stretched. The tunnel hummed once, then went still. The buoy stayed mute. The radio gave only noise. At 40 minutes, the needle slid a notch into gray. "Order 2 now," I said. "Capsule." The capsule took 3 and latched. I set the second bar, killed small fans, and left the main unit on high. Ice hung on the intake hood like teeth. The mouth might be choking. "Gear up," I said. "We clear the hood from the ladder." We clipped lines, took the ladder, and climbed the service wall. The roof was glass. The hood wore a shell with a narrow lip. I broke the rim with the pole and brushed the mesh until air moved free. I pressed my hand to the duct and felt a vibration return. Inside, the needle rose a hair. "Hold capsule," I said on the handheld. "Copy," Lila said. "Oxygen steady." We came down. I opened the small return grill. One screw had walked out a turn. Cold shrinks frames. I snugged it, reseated the gasket, and felt the pull change at my wrist. The gauge drifted back to the green edge and held. I let 5 minutes pass before I called it good. We breathed like normal people again. We kept posture low for the night, power to listen, lights to red. The loop stayed short. If a friend needed water, they could live to morning. A door at night kills faster than a rule hurts a stranger. The ice stopped ticking. The great rope lay. A number station counted once and died. We listened to pipes settle. At 2 a roll came on the ground mics from the basin like many feet learning a rhythm. I tapped the bar. Dana went to the porch slot. Owen stood by the great cord. Lila sat by the capsule with a timer. "They learned the tunnel," Dana said. "They'll try the court." "We stay dark," I said. "No floods unless someone enters the box." A hiss on pea gravel at the lip. A knuckle on stone. Then nothing. A face pressed into the crack between woodpile and rock and held there like scent could pass through steel. The eyes did not track. The mouth worked around air. It pulled back, turned, and walked toward the track. Two more did the same. They searched for a tone that no longer played. When they did not find it, they drifted off the lane. The fourth put a boot into the court. The bell plate rang once. He stopped. He did not look at the sound. He looked at the seam. I let him stand until his balance swayed. He stepped back and turned away. "Rate," I said. "1 every 3 minutes," Dana said. "No push." We waited an hour. No surge. The storm had bled their line. The water had taken their lane. We did not celebrate. We wrote, we checked, we slept in turns. At dawn, the gauge held. We opened the capsule and took numbers. All normal. We ate and marked the trench for stone and mesh. When the sun found the ridge, the radio woke with a voice that had our names and our schedule and asked us to open the door now, not later. We did not. We closed the mic, checked the card, and let that voice talk to itself. We left the door closed and shifted to waterwork. Roads teach strangers where you sleep. Water erases tracks and carries sound away from the walls. The basin held backwater under alder and spruce, a narrow ribbon that linked a culvert to a drowned fence. If we moved quiet, we could reach the cache without teaching the road our name. We staged one canoe in the service bay. No bright gear, no chatter. Each of us packed a small bag with food, a note, tape, and 2 glow sticks. I carried the radio in a dry pouch and a covered light. Dana sat bow with a pole for the shallows. I took stern. Owen stayed with Hal to watch the gauge, the rope, and the loop. "Same rules," I said. "No names on open mics. 3 flashes hold, 2 move, 1 back. If I say down, fold into the boat." We moved at first light. Ice shelled the reeds thin enough to break and quiet if we took our time. We hugged the bank and let the current choose the pace, touching water only to steer and to stop the hull from kissing a branch. Sound dies on water when you do not push it. The culvert mouth sat under a leaning spruce. Someone had marked the place with 3 stones and a stick, the same signal we use when we do not want to speak. I set the canoe behind alder and stepped into mud. Dana watched the cut and kept low. I brushed snow from the tote and listened. Wind and reeds. Far ice, no feet. Inside sat 2 small sacks of rice, a jar of beans, a roll of line, and a candle stub, plus a note, still standing, West Ridge, quiet route marked. "Half," I said, "weight for weight." We took 1 sack and the jar, left a pouch of oats and 2 hooks, and wrote, "Water route used, cash checked. Return in 7, leave weight for weight." Tape sealed the edge. Snow hid the print. We walked our tracks with a cedar bough until the path looked like wind. On the way back, we scouted a second lane through drowned timber, tight and slow, but good if the flat ever learns our rhythm. Dana marked 2 deadheads with a small tape tab a foot above the surface. We logged bearings by tree and rock because gadgets fail when you need them most. At the mouth, we paused. The track above was empty. The woodpile did not move. The bell plate was mute. We slid the canoe into the bay, wiped it dry, and hung it on the wall, green on the gauge. The tunnel sang a small normal note. By afternoon, the sky cleared enough to tempt a door open. We did not. We trimmed branches near the antenna line, filled gaps in stone, and moved the barrel that feeds the flap 1 notch. Small changes add time. Time adds safety. At dusk, we set a mirror at a bend that points at our door. A small square on a cedar faces a mirror on our wall. 2 flashes reach a watcher without a mic. We set it, notched the trunk, and came home in the gray. The band carried a trader from the north. He offered salt for wire and asked if the culvert road was passable. I did not answer. Morning brought frost. We checked the cache to see if the trader was a mouth or a map. The stones were restacked in the same pattern, but the top rock sat at a new angle that made a shadow we did not leave. Inside the tote, a new note waited on the lid. Road closed is a lie. Bridge fine. Open at dusk. Same phrasing as our loop, same tone, not our handwriting. It used our cadence and our caution, word for word. We read the note twice and said nothing. Someone near us was listening long enough to imitate our loop, to learn our phrasing and to push for a door at the hour we avoid. That meant we were not alone, and that meant our rules mattered more than our nerves. We did not open. We did not answer. We reset the cache the way we found it and came home by water with no words on the band. In the hall, we wiped the canoe, checked the gauge, and sat at the table with the log between us. "Same voice," Dana said. "Not the same hand." "They want us outside at dusk," Owen said. "We do not teach them our time," I said. "We keep the loop short and let the hill work." No one argued. We ran the evening checks with care. Bars clean, great chain tethered, flood hoods tight, rope coiled, mirror aligned. The tunnel whispered a thin, normal note. At dark, the voice came back with the same question in the same tone. "Open now. Help now. Coordinate now." It used the right names and the wrong pauses like a person who had practiced and not lived the words. We left the mic off. If you argue with an empty voice, you hand it your outline. The night passed in small sounds. Ice slid from the hood. A branch clicked on steel. Wind turned once and brought a smell from the basin, a cold mix of algae and fuel. It swung away. The gauge stayed good. Morning was clean enough for decisions. We would end this week with rules we can run when tired and steps any of us can read in the dark. We called it the manifest because that word means a list you can load and check. I wrote the title and pushed the log to Dana. She read the first lines back and nodded. Lila added 2 for air and water. Owen added 1 about silence. We argued until the words were short enough to stick. This is what we wrote and signed. We say stable, not safe. Stability is a number you can read. Air is budget 1. Fans first, pump second, lights third, talk last. If a light steals air, kill the light. Doors do not open at night. We trade daylight for quiet and distance. Numbers before names. Status, need, risk. Repeat back numbers and verbs. Never promise a door. Count rate, not heads. We measure minutes between touches and bell strikes. Rate writes the plan. Distance beats accuracy in bad light. Know your backstop and angle. If you do not know, you do not take it. Quarantine is 4 days. No handshakes. Heat, water, and food through a pass. Masks near hands. Gloves for work. Numbers twice a day. Tools live where tired hands find them. Loud tools sign out. Hand tools first. Build for failure, rehearse for calm. Fix the line in daylight. Control lanes. Roads teach strangers. Water hides roots. Choose the slow way that forgets you. Trade fair. Caches take weight and give weight. Notes stay short. Stones sit where we found them. Deception exists. We check twice. Ask a small fact from yesterday. If the story bends without a question, end the call. 3 questions at shift change. What broke? What changed? What hurts? Sign mistakes. Fix what you can. Use verbs. Hold. Cut. Check ready. Do the thing the word points at. If you reach this door, speak before you move. Stop at the sign. Say your status in 3 words. Expect a drawer, not a handshake. Accept quarantine and work. We signed under that. 4 names in block letters. The rest of the day ran like a job. We armored the trench with stone and mesh and lowered the cord a finger so water goes to the tunnel first. We set a new strap on the return frame so cold could not walk a screw again. We moved flood lines to separate breakers. We raised the antenna a hand and tied the center with real tape. At noon, we tested the mirror. 2 flashes from the bend cut a small square of light onto the wall where we could see it from the table. At 1, we checked the cache and found it as we had left it. No new note, no new weight. In the afternoon, we split jobs and cross-trained. Dana ran the board, Lila checked power. Owen walked the outside line and learned the sound of the great chain by touch. I took the capsule, changed the filter, and wrote the date on the frame. We switched and did each other's lists so the system would survive the person who knew it best. Toward dusk, the band woke with small voices that tried to be big. A trader overpromised salt. A guard asked for fuel and said please. A kid read yesterday's weather word for word. We did not speak. The gauge held. The tunnel whispered. When the hour came that the note had named, we changed nothing. We let the loop run plain. Private site, not a clinic, not a pantry. Approach with notice. Quarantine required. Gate stays closed. The voice tried once and failed. It used our words in the wrong order and forgot the pause before the last line. When no one answered, it moved on. We stood our watch through the dark and did not open the door. We woke to light and stone and quiet. The last lines belong to the people who press play. If you are new here, subscribe and tell me where you are listening from. Region and a landmark, not coordinates. Do not name a door. Say a river, a ridge, a tower, a field. If this helped, share it with someone who needs a plan more than a pep talk. Save it to a list. Print the rules. Tape them to a wall. When you are tired, the paper will think for you. The loop runs at the top of the hour when power allows. If air is thin or weather is heavy, it will skip once and return. If it does not return, we are on a quiet route, or the intake is ice, or we are helping someone who followed the rules. My name is Marek Stone. This bunker stands because routine beats panic and numbers beat noise. Keep your lights low. Keep your routes slow. Keep your rules short. We kept our promise today. The gate stays closed until quarantine is complete. The work does not. Stay sharp.